Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
Hey, we're pumped to talk with Jeffrey A. Smith. He is the director and also some producing of a new movie that's coming out tomorrow. It's called Southern Gospel. Jeffrey,
That's
how
right.
are you?
Awesome, man. How you guys doing? Thank you, Rick and Dan, for having me on your show. Enjoyed chatting with you a little bit before we got started, and looking forward to talking with you guys.
We're just both in awe of your studio there and all the fun toys you've got there.
Yes, I have. Thank you. I've been, collecting this stuff. I'm 50, and I was a recording artist. I got my first record deal when I was 17 with Myrrh Records.
Yeah.
Made Christian music and word records. So
Yeah,
I've been a
yeah.
music producer for years. So this is kind of the world I'm probably most comfortable with.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if you're watching Facebook Live or YouTube Live, right behind him, peering at Jeffrey, is actually Jimi Hendrix. Amazing.
Mm.
It's. I think he's the greatest guitar player of all time. A friend of mine painted a pretty famous painter. Friend of mine painted that for me. I think for my 40th birthday. So I just use it when I'm recording guitar solos to remind myself of how human I am in contrast.
I'm not worthy.
Yes.
Well, Jeffrey, we want to talk about Southern Gospel. It's a movie that's near and dear to your heart. It's coming out tomorrow. And I noticed I Googled it, and it's in theaters here. I'm in Loganville, Dan on the other side of Atlanta. So there's a 2 or 3 or 4 theaters even around my area
Mhm.
that are getting ready to play it. That is tomorrow night. And we hope that it continues to run and touch people and make a lot of money for you guys. But first, you said this is not your first rodeo. You've done other movies. You've done other work, musical work. As you said, you worked for Myrrh and Word. So tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, I started out professionally. That would be my history, I guess. This story is about my parents, Southern Gospel. So the backstory of my life would be growing up on the road with my parents, who were traveling evangelists in churches for the first 5 years of my life. My dad was a pastor, went through lots of up and downs, and kind of when I was 17, I had sung in church all that time, so I went directly into the music business, became a music producer, wrote a lot of songs for other artists, and I think as a music producer, working with some of the great musicians that are out there, I sort of learned how to deal with highly talented, just genius level artists, and
Mhm.
as a producer, kind of take that talent and organize it in a way that ends up with a great final product. I think which kind of gave me the fever to want to be a film director, which in my opinion is very similar,
Mm.
just on a visual level. And you're going from 15 people on a project to, like, our project had 285 cast and crew when we
Wow.
were filming it. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey, and a lot of my experience from music to me has in the church world has translated well to being able to direct films and try to tell stories this way.
The movie's called Southern Gospel, and it starts again in theaters tomorrow, officially Friday, but really tomorrow,
Yeah.
on Thursday. So tell us kind of the story about it and what folks can expect from the movie.
Yeah, this is a story. My dad is not famous, and my mom is not famous. They've made an incredible impact, but the story that they went through. My dad was a really good kid. His father was a pastor in a very small town in Alabama in the 1950s and 60s, and it's sort of a story of a good boy that experiences some pushback and some problems from the church world, and a leader in the church did something and blamed him for something that he had no control over. And it really devastated him after a really big tragedy where someone died. And my dad, in his late teens, got very bitter toward the church world, and he joined a rock and roll band and toured around and played with the Animals, the Rolling Stones, and his band was doing some really big things on the cusp of a big record deal when a terrible crash happened and a tragedy happened, and lost some of his friends, and to suicide, to a OD, to
Mm.
a accident. And it just kind of brought him back to reality of realizing that the bitterness that he had, he was going to have to deal with that eventually. And, so he became the judge, let him off kind of miraculously. He was facing 25 years and said, I'll let you off under the condition that you tell people about the dangers of drugs and alcohol. And that turned into my dad and my mom sharing my dad's story and his testimony in playing music, and just places packed out for years, and it turned into a whole kind of life and ministry. So I wanted to tell that story kind of from a visceral, gritty aspect,
Hmm.
not something that you might predict. There's a lot of heavy kind of ideas in this film, because my life was not a real G-rated life growing up, and I experienced a lot of pain and failure and people hurting, but still trying to follow after their calling. So we wanted to do something a little bit different with our film and present a different approach to that kind of story.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for not being predictable, because
Yeah.
how many
Yeah.
times have we been to movies and it's like, okay, been there, done that, next. Right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Jeff,
know what you mean.
yeah, Jeffrey Smith, we're talking about Southern Gospel in theaters tomorrow. And this loosely about, I guess, about, well, not loosely, about your mom and dad. When
Yeah.
you went to get with your dad, no doubt you'd heard many stories over the years. Did you sit down with him and find stories that maybe he hasn't shared, or did anything surprise you, and how did he have this all chronicalized, written down somewhere? How did you get it out of him?
That's a great question, Rick. I think that it was interesting. It was a combination of things. I had heard all these stories over the years, and my dad doesn't really consider himself to be, remarkable enough for a film to be made about him. But when you combine all these stories, they are incredible. It wasn't until I heard about this tragedy.
Hmm.
He had never talked about that publicly. And 15 years ago, he shared this part of his story that I had never even heard.
Hmm.
And that was really the thing that made me say, gosh, that's the plot point that's needed to push this story in a different direction. This should be a movie. And so once I decided to make a movie, yeah, I sat down and said, hey, tell me things that you've never told me before. And I think it's also interesting that he is my hero. So I think that the early iterations of the script, he probably was a little more angelic than he was in real life, and some people did not like that read the script. They wanted him to be more flawed. So I went back to him. I said, "Hey, can we get a little grittier?" He said, "You're the one. You're the one that's trying to make me out to be a good guy." He said, I was rough." So we kind of reapproached it and just told it more like it was, and I think it kind of landed where it is, which is a more realistic view of how tough it is to follow a dream.
Jeffrey, talk about the cast that you had get together and do this movie. It looks like a great cast. Talk about how you put them together.
I love our cast. We had a fantastic casting directors. Sheila Jaffe, one of the legends of Hollywood, was there. Mark Fincannon on the East Coast with a lot of great Southern actors. We've got Max Eric, a multi-Emmy winner, who has done some really great work. And by the way, our characters, Samuel and Julie, the leads, this is a music bio, and lots of there's 16 songs in the film. So they had to be singers,
Hmm.
people that could authentically perform these songs and sing these songs in the studio or live. So Max is a super talented guy, incredible voice, great actor, and Caitlin Nacon from The Walking Dead. She's
Hmm.
known she's very loved on her as her character as Enid on The Walking Dead. She's also done some great film work as of late. She's in the film Jay Alphonse from P Valley, who is, I think, one of the greatest young actors in Hollywood right now. He plays the role of Barry, and also Emma Myers, who came to really huge kind of fame recently from her role in Wednesday, the Netflix show Wednesday. And Emma
Yeah.
was fantastic in this movie as Angie. We just got to work with some of the most incredible actors. And as I was saying before, kind of like with music, I think my approach to filmmaking is you get these talented people, and you hope that they feel and understand the script, and you just kind of let them work. If there's a problem, you can kind of discuss that and say, let's reapproach it a different way. But I just tried to let these guys do what they're really good at.
Hmm.
Jeffrey Smith talking about Southern Gospel. Jeffrey, when you guys sat down to view the final piece, everything was edited, music, etc. It was ready to go. Cast and crew sat down in a theater, I'm assuming, and
Yes.
watched it. Anything surprise you? Reactions, maybe personally or from other people? You thought, wow, I didn't realize it would make that much impact, that particular scene. What did you see?
Well, Rick, where are you getting all these banger questions, man? These are solid interview questions here. So first of all, we didn't get to have a cast premiere, but because we filmed this during COVID, our protocols during COVID were insane. We were like the only major film that was filming during that time in Atlanta. So never got that luxury. We recently had a premiere where lots of cast got to come in. I think in that moment, sitting in a theater, being able to sit back and hearing people laugh at things that maybe surprised me a little, or weep and cry at things that I knew were emotional, but saying, wow, this story connects. People are getting it. And then, there's a 5-minute standing ovation at the end of it, and people just saying how they've never seen anything quite like that before. I think, Rick, to answer your question, it was pretty unbelievable. My parents were there. And I think that's the moment that I had dreamed about the most, was being able to do create a piece of art that touches people and inspires people and encourages them. And there's an authenticity and an honesty to that art that you kind of felt like you reach a bit of a finish line with that. So that was a really powerful moment for me.
So and your parents were there, and did you get the thumbs up from Dad? Like,
oh my gosh,
they were right.
Yeah, they were overwhelmed. They love them. I mean, by the way, they came to the set when we were making it, and no one wanted to talk to me. Everyone's hanging out with my parents, like all the actors. It's like, I'm like, where are the actors? They're like, oh, they're over there with your parents telling stories. I'm like, Mom, Dad, go back to the hotel room for a second. I got to make a movie here.
That's awesome. Director Jeffrey A. Smith. The movie's called Southern Gospel, in a theater near you. Really, it is. Starts tomorrow. And we just pray that this make a lot of money for these guys so they can continue, and that it does have the impact that they really want on so many folks that are going to view it. And, you said earlier that you were 50. I promise you, this is not just talk show host shtick or but yeah, I thought you were 30 something.
Oh, well, it's the hat.
You look like you're 30 something.
Thank you. It's the hat. We all three of us have got some gray history in our. We're proud of this stuff, man.
This is wisdom right here.
Yes, it's wisdom. It's wisdom. I got some wisdom under here that I can show you.
There you go. Hey, we appreciate.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. SouthernGospel.film is the place to go to find out more, and hey, see the film. Jeffrey, we'd love to catch up with you maybe in a month or two, and
of course,
just kind of say, hey, what did you see? What did you hear? What were people saying about the film? And no doubt afterward it'll probably stream somewhere, and we'll let folks in on that as well.
Awesome.
It's called Southern Gospel, the movie. Check it out, SouthernGospel.film. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk.